J. All right, welcome back to the Average Joe Sports Talk Show. I'm your host, Jay Real, bringing you this Tuesday edition of the show. Now, we have tons, and I mean tons of sports to cover, so we're going to just dive right on in, starting with last week's show. We're going to go ahead and do a wrap-up of this topic and this issue because we feel it is no longer even a relevant topic to be discussing at this point. But because for the last 4 or 5 days it's been so heavy in the sports topic world that we have to just discuss it and then move on. We are talking about the Riley Cooper situation we brought up in Friday's show, and it just continued to snowball and continued to grow. But hopefully after today it'll no longer be a topic because Riley Cooper has joined his team back in Philadelphia. He was excused last week to receive treatment of some kind over the weekend to help him with his issue of using a racial slur. That is right. This guy was not on the football field. He was not in the locker room or even in the team facilities. He was at a concert with his friends and family, as we told you last week, and got into an altercation with an African American and called the guy an N-word or something about the N-word, and it just got blown totally out of proportion. It got totally blown out of the water. It was just so ridiculous to see how many people were impacted by this and were so offended and so just traumatically affected by what he had to say at a concert after drinking and hanging out with his friends and family all night. Now again, I'm not trying to say drinking is an excuse for anything, but let's get real, folks. If you're out with your friends and family and you're having a few adult beverages and you've had a few too many probably, here comes the liquor muscles, the liquid muscles, whatever you want to call it, and we start to say and act and do things that we normally would not do. Again, doesn't make it inexcusable, but let's get real. It does help to confuse or clouding our judgment. So, with that said, Riley Cooper did return to practice, and folks, I had to do a lot of soul searching for myself over the weekend. I'm not saying that I had anything to cure, but I guarantee you can't cure anything over a weekend. So what they expected poor Riley Cooper to do over a weekend, being kicked out of teams' practices and all their events leading up till Monday, I don't know what they expected him to do, especially for what he did. He didn't assault anybody. He didn't bust someone over the head with a beer bottle, stab, shoot, maim, or murder anybody. So I had to do some soul searching, and what I did is I went into the archives and I had to pull out not only some interviews but old footage and CDs of my favorite rapper of all times. I'm sure many of you have heard of him. He might even be your favorite rapper, and that was Tupac Shakur. Now, the thing I had to look back at is because not only was the man a really phenomenal rapper, speaker, you know, and whatever you want to call him, the guy was really intellectual when it came to breaking things down about people. So I had to go back and I had to review some of my old interviews with Tupac Shakur, and I have to say I was really impressed because even back in the mid-90s, this man, Tupac Shakur, was saying that not only as a black people, not only as a white people, brown people, Asian people, whatever kind of people, that even at that point in the mid-90s, that we have to loosen up. We have to let our feelings when it comes to being racist and racial, we had to start breaking that down and start living together as one if we were going to make this thing work. And I assume he was talking about Earth, about as one people. Now, does that mean that there's not an exception to the rule, that we're still not going to have racism in the world? No, absolutely not. But I do believe from what he was saying that, folks, we have to not be so sensitive when it comes to certain things. As I said in the last show, and this is going to be, again, a really real and very specific, no-holds-barred show, okay? For any race to be so sensitive to a word is just not moving forward. And he was saying that, again, we have to break down these barriers and these words that cause us to just go at each other and go at another particular type of race with such anger and such just, again, animosity, when at this time, especially in the mid-90s, as he was doing these interviews, he himself was already saying it's time to give it up. It's time to let it go and move forward. So I was really impressed with what I had to hear from him. And again, a lot of people can look at Tupac Shakur and say that he was, a bad person. He was charged and convicted with rape. I personally, after reading all of the transcripts and watching the court and the events unfold in court, believe he was totally duped and totally just ran over in the court. But if you all are willing to or want to research for yourself, you can just go look under the Tupac Shakur transcripts for that rape charge that he was found guilty of and spent, I believe, a little over 2 years or almost 2 years in jail for. But one thing you cannot take away from Tupac Shakur, if you really look back at the man and look back at what he had to say, is he was very inspiring when it came to breaking barriers of race and things like that down. So with that said, I think we have to take some things in context and go, okay, are words just words? Okay, let's just look at it like this, and then we're going to go ahead and wrap this up and move on. One of my favorite rap groups, again, not rappers, rap groups, back in the 80s was a group called NWA. Again, many of you might know them, many of you might even appreciate them as well. This group was called Niggers with Attitude. That's right, A-S, not E-R-S, Niggers with Attitude. Now, I'm not saying that, I'm just referring to the group's name. And then they shortened it down with NWA. But if it is so offensive for black people and the black community, then how could this rap group become a multi-platinum selling group and go on to make it to the plateau of best rap group, at least in the top 5 of all rap groups, if this is such an offense, if this is such a demeaning and just horrific word. Now again, it isn't with the E-R-S, it's A-S, but just to throw it out there, and you can all let me know what you think, because it is an actual group. I didn't make this up, and I'm not just saying it to the camera and to all you folks. NWA did stand for Niggas with Attitude. Again, it's in factual print, it's in anything you want to look up, just check it out for yourselves. And they were very, very popular, not only in the black community, but in all communities, white, brown, whatever you want to say. They were very popular. Then moving back to my number one rapper of all times, he has a song where lyrics actually go, I'd rather be an N-I-G-G-A and smoke weed and get high every day. So he's using these own words in rap songs, and this is just one example of probably thousands. This song was very popular on this particular album, and it sold millions of copies. So again, all I'm trying to get here is let's be real, let's be fair, and let's be equal if we want to move forward in this whole racism type of situation. Now, the gentleman used the N-word. Yes, he did. He apologized for it. He said he was sorry. Where I actually have a more problem with all of this is Riley Cooper, buddy. How can you say that you are so disgusted and ashamed? And I mean, like if you raped somebody, you made an apology. Like if you went out and killed a bunch of people or child abuse or something, this apology was like so overdone. The guy went on to say that he needs counseling, that he needs help. Now, if he is a racist, then I would say the counseling and all this help would need to take place. But if he just said the N-word out of anger and is not, I feel, not a true racist, then just because of what I've read about him and where he comes from, it's hard to believe that this man is an actual racist. So how many of us have said something to somebody in a fit of rage, under the influence? If we were all held accountable for what we said, if this was just some average Joe on the street that was in an argument with some black people or some Mexican people, and he said, hey, I'm going to mess all you beaners up, it wouldn't even have been a topic on the Zoo Channel news, much less CNN, NBC, CNBC, all these major networks, SportsCenter, ESPN, everybody picked it up and ran with it and made this a huge issue when it was really no big issue at all. Then, to finally wrap up, I have to say kudos to a couple of sports hosts over the weekend, and I'm not going to say their name, but they know who they are, and these are black sports hosts that had the same exact feelings on this situation that I said on our show on Friday, where they were like, what's the big deal? We were waiting to hear what else the guy did. He broke a bottle over someone's head. He stabbed them. He assaulted somebody. No, he said a word. And they were on the same page as us and as many other Americans out there. Big freaking deal. Big freaking deal. He apologized, and now it's time to move forward. And I have to say one last thing to his punk players that are on that team that have an issue and say they cannot forgive him, they cannot play with him probably. Same thing that the sports person that was a ex-football player and a huge football player, had a big name, played for many years. He said that's just punk. That is just a bitch move to be like that. Because there's no way in the world that these black players that are on the Eagles team could be so offended and so hurt by something like this. And we're going to just go ahead and wrap it up with, Riley Cooper, you said something that you shouldn't have said. You apologized for it. Way, way overboard, but you did it as a man. You stood up to it. And we all here, and as many of you out in the world, can say, leave the dude alone, let him be, he's not a racist, and let the man make a living to feed his family. Don't go in there because of one incident, one word, and try to ruin the man's livelihood and career over it. I guarantee you that locker room has heard that N-word many more times by blacks, whites, Mexicans, whoever. It's just time to move forward. So we're going to wrap up with that. Thank you all for taking the time to listen and give us your feedback. Let us know what you think. Is it a big deal? Is it not a big deal? Should we be so sensitive as to get upset? If I hear the word beaner, spick, wetback, some kind of joke dealing with Mexicans, you know what? It doesn't offend me in the sense that I'm going to try to ruin someone's life or take away their livelihood or make it such a big issue to bring in the Mexican community to just totally witch hunt after one person. I mean, how about the word redneck? That to me is an offensive term. You're going to call a white person a redneck. You're going to call a white person a cracker, a honky, whatever you want to call them. Why isn't that just as offensive as the N-word? And I know a lot of you will say, well, because it's not as severe as a word that represented something way back, hundreds of years ago. But the problem is, folks, now the word has changed. it's used in a whole different context, so people are getting adjusted to the word. They're getting used to hearing the word, and it doesn't have that same impact that it used to. So, again, take it for what you want. We just had to give you our wrap-up and breakdown of the Riley Cooper situation. We stand behind him. We don't think it was that big of a deal, so God bless you, Riley Cooper. Make the changes, learn from your mistake, and grow from it. All right, moving on. We got to go to the NBA real quick. Why Greg Oden signed with the Miami Heat for a one-year deal with a possible second-year deal if he can perform. This was for the veterans' minimum salary, but I have to say, as we said about a week or two ago, with Oden on the Heat, three-peat, these guys should have no problem with a big man being down in the paint for anywhere between 20 to 25, 28 minutes, giving them hopefully 10 points, 10-plus rebounds, and hopefully a handful of assists. There's no reason why the Heat should not three-peat with Greg Oden on the team. We're already calling it out right here, right now, on the Average Joe Sports Talk Show. So, with that said, we're moving on. Shaquille O'Neal came out in an interview and recently said that he believes that after the 2013-14 season, when LeBron James becomes a free agent, that he will be taking his talents to New York. And I say, bull crap. Bull crap. There's no way on the earth that LeBron James is going to leave his cherry-picked team where they can win possibly another one or two championships to go somewhere else and try to make it somewhere else where he would have to be the number one guy. And what I mean by that is LeBron James has to have those 1 and 2 and 3 big guys. What I mean by that is not big in physical stature, but big as in big-time players. He has Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, and now Greg Oden on the team. This guy ain't going anywhere. This guy is going to be so comfortable fitting into his number one role on a team that has solid number one picks in that number one draft, if not number two, possibly for sure under top 5. This team is loaded with talent. Excuse me. They are set to make a run of the next 1 to 2 years, and they've already won 2 championships. LeBron James isn't going anywhere. He's not going to L.A., and he's not going to New York. Why? Because he doesn't want to be left alone to run a team and have the whole team depend on him. He can't do it. He tried it in Cleveland. We saw what happened there. He folded up his tent, sleeping bag, and that guy is ready to just stay where he is. He is not going to risk giving that position up to where he has to do it all by himself. Just can't do it. So we here at the Average Joe Sports Talk Show not only call him out and say that he's going to stay with the Heat for many years, but they will also three-peat this year. Okay, going on to another sports topic. Let's go to the NFL. Wow, Vince Young has signed with the Green Bay Packers. Folks, we told you a week or two ago, don't be surprised if you see these players that were left for dead. They're out in the middle of nowhere. Nobody's looking at them. And then, bam, surprisingly, they're on a good team. And don't be surprised if Vince Young isn't jockeying to back up Aaron Rodgers in that number 2 spot in quarterback. So that was big news. And I think the reason why is they're not very comfortable. The Green Bay Packers don't feel comfortable with their rookies and the quarterbacks that they have right now on the roster if Rodgers were to go down during the season. So they brought in somebody that they felt could just slide right on in, be a more comfortable leader, and somebody that has proven that they could be a quarterback in the league. So good job for Vince Young. I'd be surprised if we don't see him, because Aaron Rodgers, his way of quarterbacking is just like many of the quarterbacks that get injured. You got Ben Roethlisberger, guys that are real mobile, very versatile, and they get out and run. They try to extend plays. They're the ones that tend to get hurt. So, with that said, don't be surprised if you don't see Vince Young in this season playing. So, moving forward from that, we have to touch Major League Baseball. A-Rod was back in the lineup last night, went 1 for 4 with a single, and man, I'm going to tell you, people are not happy to see him. There were a lot of boos last night, but I don't understand it. I just don't get it, because the guy has never tested positive for PEDs. He did admit at a certain time for injury he used PEDs to recover, and now with this whole thing going on from the Miami clinic that shut down, that 12 other players were suspended over the weekend or through the weekend on Monday, and he was the 13th player that got suspended for 155 games. What is that? Everyone else got 50, including Brian Braun, and then here comes A-Rod, who's never been tested, a first offender, and boom, 155 games. That's all of this season and all of next season, basically guaranteeing that his career is over because he's already pushing 40 years old, as we said last week, and it's going to be very difficult after hip surgery, not playing this season or next season, to come back and try to make a comeback. So it's not hard to understand why he is fighting this, why he is going to fight this 155-game suspension, not only because of his career is on the line, but $100 million of his contract salary is on the line. So just some phenomenal situations going on in Major League Baseball. And we have to say, Major League Baseball, man, they need to get this chip off their shoulder. Okay? The Roy's era is over. There's a few players that are left around that are still going to try to be the players that take an advantage somehow, some way to become a better player. Excuse me, but is that any different than any other sport? You're never going to get rid of that. You're never going to get rid of every single steroid, every single person, because when there's money to be made, there's going to be people that are going to try to take shortcuts and take advantages of certain situations. So it's just kind of hard to believe that they're witch hunting after A-Rod, and I did say witch hunting because, if anything, if they would have given him a 50-game suspension, he said he would not have fought it. He would have took the suspension of 50 games like everybody else, and then we would have moved on. But no, not Major League Baseball. They got to make an example. They got to witch hunt here and try to get this guy's out of baseball for the rest of his career. So let us know your feedback or comments on the A-Rod situation, and we'd be happy to bring them up in Friday's show. Okay, we're not going to cut away to a break. We're going to go into wrap up because we've been going on and on. There's so much information, and we don't want the show to continue on forever. But we're going to wrap up with the NCAA. They did release the top 10 college football teams, and we're just going to touch on one of them, and that's Alabama was ranked number 1. And we had no doubt about that because they have 2 times repeat championship football team, and they're going to go for a 3rd one this year. It's going to be very difficult to see anybody knocking out Alabama this year because they have so many returning players from last year. I think they only lost 2 or 3 players, and everybody else is returning. So you let us know what you think. Is Alabama going to? Would you take Alabama or the field in this year's championship? It's going to be interesting to see, and it'll be fun to talk about it in Friday's show. So please leave us your comments and feedback. And then finally, we have to talk about Johnny Manziel. Johnny Football is in some trouble, folks. Supposedly, he received a 5-figure payday for signing 100 autographs. Now, here at the Average Joe Sports Talk Show, we're going to say, so freaking what? It's his autograph. If he can make some money off of signing some papers, who freaking cares? It has nothing to do with how he plays on the football field. And I know everybody out there is going to be like, well, it is the rules, and yeah, it is policy. But the problem is, folks, if you can keep these guys from making money in college, then why in the world is the NCAA making billions of dollars off these kids with nothing in return? It doesn't make any sense. And I know there needs to be a rule change for this to happen, but I'm tired of hearing all these sports analysts and sports people saying, no, we should not pay college athletes. How do you split it up? How do you divide it? Where does the best part of the pie go? It's easy, folks. It's so easy. Is it going to be fair? Absolutely not. But basketball, football, possibly baseball, the teams, the sports that bring in these colleges the most money should get some of that in return. How do you split it up? How do you put up the pie, for everybody? Well, guess what? The players and the teams that make more revenue for the NCAA are going to get a bigger piece of the pie. It's that simple. Johnny Football should be getting more than some guy in Walla Walla, Washington as a quarterback. It's just that simple. Is it fair? No, it's not. But is life fair? No. So anyway, Johnny Manziel's going to face some serious questioning and possible suspension. But this is all I got to say, folks. I guarantee you, right here on the Average Joe Sports Talk Show, Jay Real is saying he will be playing against that Alabama team. The Alabama game is going to be coming up this season, and there is no way on the planet with a sold-out game that they're going to have Johnny Football sitting on the bench or suspended, not even on the field. It's just not going to happen. Plain, cut, simple, dry, period. Put it on the calendar. This kid will be playing in that game. So, with that said, we're going to go ahead and wrap up Tuesday's show. We hope you appreciated all the information and news we brought to you. We brought you a lot of our own personal opinions. We would like your opinions and feedback. Leave them right there in the comments section, or you can get a hold of us through RiodosoMidtown.com. Click on the Merchants tab. Bam! You will see us under the Player Zone under Entertainment, and you can contact them right there direct, or you can go to the Average Joe Sports Talk Show and click on our Facebook Average Joe Sports Talk Show and leave us a message and contact us right through there directly. But again, as I mentioned, the Player Zone is our huge sponsor, so is the Right On Time Errand and Delivery Service. We can't do it without them. All your gaming needs, comic books, sports cards, memorabilia, all your accessories when it comes to card games, Yu-Gi-Oh, Magic, and even Pokemon. They have it all. It's amazing place, the Player Zone. Don't forget to check them out. But for right now, Jay Real's going to sign out. We will see you on Friday's show. Don't forget to tune in. But for right now, we're going to say peace and much love. We'll see you later. Jay Real.